The heat hit me like a wall when we pulled into the hotel parking lot. The kind of suffocating heat that presses into your lungs and makes you feel like you're breathing fire. My shirt clung to my back, sweat dripping down my neck, but all I could hear was my mom gushing over the hotel lobby as if she had just stepped into paradise. "See that chandelier? That's what real class looks like," she said, her eyes glued to my sister, not me. My sister Melanie twirled her hair and smirked at me from the back seat. "I bet the suite's gonna have a jacuzzi," she squealed. Dad laughed, slapping the steering wheel. "For our princess? Only the best." His words hung heavy in the air, each syllable dripping with favoritism that had been carved into my bones since childhood. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video. I stepped out of the car, the asphalt burning through the soles of my shoes, and tried to follow them inside. Mom's hand shot out like a barrier. "Not you," she hissed. "You think money grows on trees? We barely could afford this vacation with all your whining about food and clothes. You're not setting foot in that suite." My stomach dropped. "Where am I supposed to sleep?" Melanie leaned out of the open car door, her grin as wide as the desert sky. "In the trunk. Isn't that what trash bins are for? Keeps the mess out of sight." Dad chuckled, his voice cruel and casual. "Trash cooks well outside. Maybe the heat will burn some manners into you." Then he tossed the keys at me, not to the room, but to slam the trunk shut. I wanted to scream, but I didn't, because I'd learned long ago that raising my voice only got me another slap across the face, another lecture about how I should be grateful they hadn't dumped me at a shelter, so I dragged my small duffel bag out of the way, lifted the trunk, and crawled inside. The air smelled of oil and old rubber. The metal floor seared my palms when I touched it, and the moment they closed the lid, darkness swallowed me. I could hear muffled laughter from the family as they wheeled Melanie's shiny pink suitcase toward the lobby. Her laughter was light, carefree, the kind that had always been funded by my suffering. I pressed my head against the trunk's lining, the heat building so quickly it was like being buried alive. Every breath grew heavier, thicker, until I wondered if maybe this was their real plan, to cook me alive so they wouldn't have to look at me anymore. I whispered to myself to stay calm. I counted seconds. I wiped sweat that dripped into my eyes. But all I could see in my head was Melanie stretched out on crisp white sheets while I was curled up like a discarded rag doll in the sweltering dark. When the hotel lights outside dimmed and the noise faded, I thought maybe they'd come back to check. Maybe. But they didn't. My parents didn't look back once. Not when the trunk rattled with my shallow breathing, not when my throat grew dry and raw, not when I clawed at the carpeted lining for air. And that was when something snapped inside me, not just a thought, but a certainty. They weren't family. They never were. They were my captors, and I was the sacrifice they fed to Melanie's comfort. And if they thought I'd always take it, they didn't know me as well as they believed. The heat pressed harder like a hand on my chest, but I bit down on the inside of my cheek and whispered, "One day, you'll choke on what you did to me." And I meant it. When morning came, I peeled my back from the trunk floor like burnt skin from asphalt. My body was sore, drenched in sweat, my lips cracked from the heat. When I pushed open the trunk, the glare of the sun stabbed my eyes, and I saw them, Mom, Dad, and Melanie, strolling out of the hotel's front entrance in fresh clothes, laughing over their buffet breakfast. Melanie carried a plate of pastries, wrapped carefully in a napkin, and when she spotted me climbing out of the trunk, she made a show of holding one croissant to her lips before tossing it into a trash can. "Oops, guess you'll find it where you belong," she called out, smirking so hard her dimples nearly split her cheeks. Mom's voice was sharp as a blade. "Don't embarrass us. Get back in there until we leave. Do you want the hotel staff to know we're hauling dead weight around?" Dead weight. That's what I was. Not a son, not a human being, just a burden they shoved around like luggage. Dad leaned against the car, sunglasses hiding his eyes but not his grin. "Your sister deserves peace, not your whining. We gave you a roof. Be grateful. Melanie gets the suite because she's worth something. You're lucky we don't leave you roasting on the curb." Something twisted in my chest. I wanted to scream, to throw myself at him, to claw every smug word out of his mouth. But instead, I forced myself back into the trunk, gripping the inside so tightly my nails bent back. My silence wasn't weakness anymore. It was storage, a place to keep the fire until it was ready to burn. By the third night, my body ached beyond exhaustion. My clothes were sour with sweat, my throat parched from rationing sips of warm water they begrudged me. Every evening, I'd hear the slam of the hotel door, Melanie's laughter echoing across the lot. She'd stop by the car window, tap on the glass, and say things like, "Don't suffocate in there, rat," or, "If you croak, at least it won't ruin my vacation." Mom never scolded her. Dad never stopped her. In fact, they encouraged it. One night, as Melanie paraded a new dress bag into the hotel, Mom looked at me through the windshield and said, "See? That's where our money belongs, on someone who shines. Not on you." The words burrowed deep, but something else grew around them. An armor. I began to watch, to memorize. I studied every sneer, every careless toss of a room key, every lazy word about how much they deserved this vacation, while I rotted quietly. One evening, when they thought I was asleep in the trunk, I heard them through the cracked window. Dad's voice was low, but not low enough. "She's almost 26, and still nothing. No degree, no husband, no use. What are we keeping her for?" Mom's laugh was a dagger. "For Melanie's convenience. She can clean, babysit, run errands. Every family needs a servant." My throat burned hotter than the summer air. Servant. That's what I was to them. A servant trapped in the body of their child. That night, as the car creaked under the weight of the heat, I whispered to myself again, but this time with more venom. They think I'm their servant. I'll show them what I really am. The breaking point came on the 5th day. They had booked Melanie a spa package in the hotel. When she came back, wrapped in a robe, her hair shining, she demanded I polish her sandals before she wore them out to dinner. Dad tossed them into the trunk with me. The leather straps smacked against my face, and Melanie peered in with a sick smile. "Kiss them if you want food," she said. "Trash should worship what it'll never have." Mom laughed in the background. "Maybe if he licks the dirt off, he'll finally be useful." I stared at those sandals in the dim trunk light. For the first time, I didn't cry. I didn't even flinch. I felt a calm, heavy stillness settle over me, like the silence before a storm. My hands moved, not to clean her shoes, but to fold the thought into my bones. They will choke on what they made me. And in that moment, I began to plan. When they weren't looking, I started slipping things from the trunk into my duffel bag, a hotel receipt crumpled on the back seat, a copy of their credit card slip Melanie carelessly left near me, half-empty bottles of champagne they stashed in the car, even the keys Dad sometimes forgot overnight. They thought I was their shadow, their dog in the trunk. But I was collecting the pieces of their comfort, stacking them silently in my favor. Every insult, every order, every slap of humiliation was a brick, and I was building something, not a wall, not a shield, a weapon. They thought I was trash cooking in the sun. But they didn't realize trash, when burned, turns into smoke that chokes everything around it. And when my moment came, I would make sure their laughter turned into coughs of regret. The 7th day was when my body nearly gave up. The heat turned suffocating, the metal trunk like an oven. My skin was blistered, my breath shallow, but my mind sharp, sharper than ever. The only thing that kept me alive was the image of them laughing while I roasted, and I swore if I survived, their laughter would be the last sound they'd ever want to hear. That night, they came back drunk from some fancy dinner. Melanie wobbled in her heels, tossing her clutch bag onto the car roof, before stumbling into the suite with Mom steadying her arm. Dad didn't notice he'd left the car keys dangling in the trunk lock. My chance. I slid out silently, every movement aching. I opened Melanie's clutch and found her key card, her ID, and a wad of hotel receipts she hadn't bothered to check. Their signature was on every one of them, and there, tucked between her receipts, was Dad's leather wallet. Inside, not just cash but his driver's license, cards, everything. I stood under the buzzing hotel lights, clutching their lives in my hands. I could have run. But running wasn't revenge. Running was what they expected. The stray who would disappear. No, I needed them to know it was me. So I set the stage. The hotel had a policy. Any damages or complaints linked to a room were billed directly and immediately. I took Dad's card and signed their suite number on a stack of late-night room service orders, champagne, lobster, the works. I wasn't careful. I wanted it messy. I wanted every staff member to march up to their door with trays and bills they couldn't deny. Then, with Melanie's ID, I called down to the desk from the lobby phone, voice hoarse but steady. "This is Melanie in Suite 504. Send security right now. Someone in our party's acting violently. Check the car in the lot." I hung up before they could ask. Within minutes, 2 guards were outside by our car, flashlights sweeping. They found the trunk open, lined with sweat-stained blankets, water bottles, and those sandals Melanie had thrown at me. They called it in, loud enough that other guests turned their heads. By the time security went upstairs to the suite with a cart of champagne and questions about the boy in the trunk, the hallway was crowded. Guests peeked out of doors, staff whispered, voices rising. I wasn't in the trunk anymore. I was standing across the lot, watching from the shadows, their world collapsing piece by piece. Dad came storming out first, red-faced, shoving the staff. "This is a mistake," he barked, but his slurred words betrayed him. Mom followed, trying to grab receipts out of the concierge's hands, but there were too many. Melanie stumbled behind, barefoot, clutching her robe around her. "Sir, your card is signed here, and here, and here," the concierge repeated flatly, holding the slips. "And why was there a young man locked in your car trunk?" one of the guards demanded. Guests gasped. Phones lit up. I saw the moment Dad realized there was no way out. He raised his hand as if to strike, but the guard stepped between him and the staff. Mom's voice cracked. "It's a family matter. He deserved it. He's nothing." Her words were loud, too loud, bouncing down the hallway. Everyone heard. That was it, the perfect end. They had unmasked themselves without me lifting a finger. I didn't stay to watch them dragged out, didn't need to. Their shouting carried through the humid night air, and every syllable was another chain snapping off me. I walked to the bus station with Dad's wallet and Melanie's ID in my pocket. Not to use them forever, just long enough to buy a ticket, eat a real meal, and breathe. For the first time in years, my chest expanded without pain. When I sat on that bus, I leaned against the window and closed my eyes. The roar of the engine drowned out their laughter, replacing it with something new. Freedom. They had locked me in a trunk to rot like trash. But in the end, they were the ones exposed, stripped bare in front of strangers, their cruelty louder than any revenge speech I could have given. And me? I wasn't trash anymore. I was gone. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.